Hey guys, Jerry Smith here with another garden update, and I'm going to start over here on the side of my house. Let's go ahead and get to it. Alright, so the first, like I said, we're going to start over here on the side of the house, and the onions have been doing really great, especially in this location. They're growing really strong foliage on the top. Haven't cut anything off the top of it. You can actually, if I remember correctly, you can eat the tops of these, so I might take a couple of them, but that's also how they also photosynthesize and send energy down to the root, so I won't do that a whole lot, but I might do that a couple times. But at any rate, haven't done anything like that yet, and they look great. The tomatoes are getting bigger. I've not thinned them out yet. There's that big cluster I've shown in a couple of other videos. There's a few more back there. They kind of look weedish right now, like a bunch of weeds, but I assure you they're not weeds. Those are tomatoes. Those are young tomatoes. And there's another one. That one's a little bit bigger. So anyway, I have a lot of tomato plants started. I'll show you one more thing before I get into the that part of the garden over there. Over here in these pots, I've got some peppers seedlings that actually started inside. So I get my camera to focus there. You can see some of them. So pretty soon I'm going to put those out in the garden. I'm going to let them harden off a little bit more right here in this location. They're not quite getting a full day's sun. They're right up next to the house. So, but they're certainly getting all of that sun in the latter part of the day. So by the time it's noon all the way until it sets, it's getting all that sun and all that heat, and that concrete actually absorbs a lot of heat throughout the day and keeps radiating it out throughout the night. So I like actually leaving it right here for right now, and eventually I'll move it out into the garden. Alright, so that's enough of that. I've reserved a lot of these sunflower plants over here on the side, and I said I didn't know what I was going to do with them, and I think I'm just going to leave them like this for a while, because whatever's in the front that's plucking them out keeps on doing it. And I thought that maybe once they were at about this stage and they had a couple leaves on them and that sort of thing, that they'd be, a little bit too bitter and too tough to really be appetizing to anything. But whatever it is that's up front is mowing it down. So I'm going to let these get a little bit stronger back here and a little bit bigger, and then I will transplant at least 5 of these. Well, I'm sorry, at least 4 of these up front. I've got 1 in the front yard. I wanted 5 total, so I'll get 4 of these at least, and if that other one goes, then I'll plant 5 of them out there. So I'll just transplant them out. The potatoes are looking really great now. They're getting some really good foliage on top. They're poking through the soil. I've topped off most of these buckets all the way to the top and flower pots. That one's not all the way quite up to the top yet. I'm letting that grow a little bit more. But you can see they're all doing really good, really healthy. So I'm really happy about this is my first attempt at doing this. It's not like I'm an expert at this by any means. So yeah, at any rate, this is actually past due for being cut. So this actually needed to be cut probably about a day or 2 ago. So I'm going to cut here tomorrow morning and make sure that I cut it. But just so you guys can see, just nice, thick, dense foliage there. And even for this small little patch, this will at least be a crisper full of greens. It'll probably be about close to 2 crispers full of greens for me. So that's a pretty good amount for just me and my wife to munch on. So I'm really happy about that. The onions back here, just like around the side of the house, are doing really well. We've got them planted all the way around the perimeter, so I'm not going to walk all the way around, but you kind of see the idea there. So yeah, those are doing really well, and I think that's about it for this patch over here. Now, I'll tell you what I want to do with this big old oregano bush here. It's wonderful. It's very fragrant, and as you can see, it is very big. It's just growing really nicely. I'm going to help it grow a little bit more by snipping off the tops of these. So I'm going to top it off, each one, and I'll probably cut it a little bit lower, but it's got these little side shoots underneath, and what it's going to do when I cut those off, it's going to promote those side shoots to grow outward. So it's going to really help expedite the growth on that plant by having those side shoots shoot out. So at any rate, it's going to spread out. It's going to take over this entire area, which I think is going to be just fantastic. Actually, I think that's a really great thing. So I'll be doing that in the morning also. So got that to cut in the morning. Got those to top off in the morning also. This bed over here, my radish bed, is just about done. I already saw some of my radishes starting to bolt. They're starting to go to seed, so I'm going to rip up the rest of these here pretty soon, and whatever comes up of it is whatever comes up of it. At this point in time, they're really not going to get any better in terms of quality, so I think here in about a day or two I'll just rip up the whole bunch, and that'll be it for my radishes, and hopefully that leaves way for my squashes, which have not come up yet, so I think I might have to replant those. But one thing I did see that I planted in here some time ago are my Malabar spinach seeds. There they are. You get a bunch of them there, kind of going down that way. They're a vining type plant. They're yep, there's another bunch of them right there. Boom. And so really I only need a couple of them. I've got them way overly densely planted, so I'm gonna, I said that in a really weird way. That was really bad English. Let me say that again. They're very overly planted. They are too dense. So I'm gonna thin them out a good bit, and then I'll put a trellis here, and they'll be able to climb up the trellis of this whole wall here, along with the butternut squash that hopefully will be coming up here in the next days or so. It's starting to get warm here in Ohio, so hopefully all that stuff will start to come up. The garlic in all three beds just looks fantastic. Okay, nice thick hardy stalks, good green foliage on top, so I'm real happy about that. These chard plants, as I predicted in the previous video I believe, are starting to bolt. You can see that they're starting to form little seed heads there. So I'm actually going to strip these plants of their leaves, and I think that's going to be it for this batch of the chard. I will chop them down, but I'm not going to dig them up out the ground. I'm going to see if they regrow again, because this is regrowth from the previous season. If you guys remember, this is from last year's chard. It was the first thing to come up in the garden, and it was one of the first things I was able to cut into. So I'm going to cut the rest of these leaves off. I don't think they'll be too bitter, to be honest with you. And if they are, I'll let you guys know about that. But that's what's going on with this chard bed. And the peppers are going in this bed eventually. Those peppers I said are back there by the house. We'll put those in this bed here. Okay. On to the next green bed here. And I cut this last week, and to be quite honest, it's ready for another cut, which is kind of scary. So I told you I had a lot of greens over there that needed to be cut down too. So now I've got two beds that are running on about the same time, and I know I'm not going to be able to eat that many greens at a time. So I think that eventually I'm going to have to start freezing some of it and finding some other alternative ways to get rid of it. Maybe start juicing a little bit more. I haven't really been doing a lot of that lately. But it's healthy, looks good. Nothing's yellowing. There's no bug problems in here. So everything looks great. Moving over here to the arugula bed, and I got one cut out of that arugula, and as you can tell, it's already bolting. You can see the flower on that one. So I think this one was a one-hit wonder in terms of that one. I think that my timing on planting this variety was a little off. I was a little late in getting it in the ground is what I'm thinking. So next year I will get this in the ground earlier. I could probably honestly put all of this in the ground earlier for next year. But to go with this bed, the spinach is actually doing fine. Spinach looks great, so when I'm done with the arugula and that's all dug up, it'll leave a lot of room for that spinach to grow. And I may be putting in some other types of hot weather greens, like maybe some chard or something else that'll do really good in here. The carrots in the back, not to ignore those, are starting to look nice in terms of the tops and foliage. I'm not going to dig down underneath and look at anything. I know that they're not ready, so I'm just not going to disturb them. I'm just going to let them do their thing in the soil, and eventually we'll dig up a few carrots later in the season. And I think that is everything. I know we planted beets over here. They've not come up yet. They've not germinated. I'm not sure if it was just a bad batch or if I've done a bad job with keeping the soil moist, or maybe I did a bad job planting with planting depth or something of that nature. But they didn't come up there, and they haven't came up here. And I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but my cucumber plants have been getting eaten up. So I've got one left here. Hopefully that gets left alone. Hopefully nothing messes with it. And I've got one little guy there, and the rest of them got kind of chewed up. So I think those are the birds. And so next year I'll have to consider doing something to fend the birds off. Maybe putting a plastic cup around it, or maybe just keeping them in pots and keeping them close to the house and keeping an eye on them that way. So those might be a plant that I have to get plant starts for, and if these peppers don't work out, I might have to get plant starts for that too. No big deal. I'll go ahead and get plant starts, pop them in there, and then I can eat peppers all for the season. That's it. That's the garden update. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like button, subscribe so you can see more. Talk to you guys later.